Great, welcome everyone. For those of you who may be joining me for the first time, I usually open up with just saying a few things, and of setting a little bit of a stage for our investigation and exploration together, and then just open it up for questions people might have, curiosities arising for people around what we're exploring. And what are we exploring here? Well, pretty simply, we're exploring the only thing we really can explore, which is what's here, our experience. We could call it experience, which is really just a word to a word that I happen to like, as far as something about its all-encompassing nature. It kind of covers everything in a way. Experience. It doesn't necessarily have any particular connotations to it either, which I also like. I mean, I could call it all God, which is a fair enough thing to say. But that has tends to have a lot of connotations for people, which I like to try to avoid. Why do I say that? Well, the central exploration that my work is about is investigating the way in which what's here, the presence of what's here right now, is beyond any possibility of actually knowing what it is, of actually being able to contain it in any kind of descriptive framework. And this single discovery is from my perspective, is what liberation is about, what the spiritual teachings are pointing to when they talk about liberation. It's really freedom from all of our ideas, freedom from all the notions we carry about what this is, all the notions we carry about what we are, what others are. And this indescribable, indefinable nature of what's here can be discovered simply by investigating the presence of our experience. It can be very helpful to, we can't really get rid of, nor do we need to get rid of our interpretations of things. That's a fool's errand, I think. Our knowledge, our seeming knowledge of phenomena is just here very spontaneously. The sense of you being, the idea that we're on a Zoom call, for example, is here just spontaneously. You can't really eradicate that idea. It's just here as a function of the astonishing intelligence of consciousness that is rendering the myriad things that are arising, this sea of information and energy that we seem to be swirling in the midst of. And so we don't have to get rid of those interpretations. But what we can do is begin to distinguish what's actually here, what's actually showing up in the immediacy of experience, that is actually not an interpretation, even if an interpretation may be being layered on it to try to convey what it is, to characterize what it is, to seemingly know what it is. So let's just take a few moments and feel the presence of our experience, which is a little bit of a funny thing to say, because that's all that's ever going on, is we're feeling the presence of our experience. Always. I mean, when is that not happening? We're always feeling the presence of our experience. But let's just bring a little noticing to that fact right now. That experience is being felt. Feel the presence of your experience. And no matter how many labels maybe consciousness or the mind, whatever we want to call that function of life, is layering on top of what's here, no matter what the frameworks are that are being put on experience to describe it, just continue to feel what's here, the felt sense of what's here. Or let's take one aspect of something we would describe that we just take for granted as being what we say it is, which is the body. We have a label for this thing called the body. And the label is referring to something that's being experienced, something that's being felt, something that's being encountered. And so I invite you into now, in the case of the body, what we call body, to feel what is actually being encountered that the label body is referring to. What is that? What's the, in the same way that the word sun refers to this yellow thing illuminated in the sky that shines and gives heat off heat, what is the label body referring to in your actual experience, not as a concept, but your actual experience? And just feel that. What is the body? Feel your way into the answer to that question. There really is no answer to the question, but let yourself discover there is no answer by feeling your way into the presence of what's here as body. What is the body made of experientially? What are the experiential particles, if you will, that make up the phenomena we call body? We might say that it's made up of sensations, right? We could ask the same question. That's just a word that's referring to what exactly? An experience. Again, not as a concept, but as an experience. What are these sensations made of? See if you can get to the bottom of it. See if you can actually arrive at what the essence is of the body. If you can pin it down and say, here it is, this is what the body is made of. Fundamentally, what is its nature? It's very curious because there's clearly something being felt, something being, we could say, sensed, something that's present, right? But when we go to look for it, we can't exactly find it. We can't exactly locate it. We can't exactly discern what it is. In other words, we can't actually determine what the body is experientially, which is really astonishing. It's here, but not able to be determined as to what it actually is. It's pure mystery, pure unfathomability. Concretely here, concretely present. You know, you can even put your hands and touch your body, the sensation of touch. very palpable, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it's here. It's not insubstantial. But the most substantial thing, the sense of touch, what is that sensation? It's so subtle and yet so concretely here at the same time. This is very paradoxical, but very much the nature of our experience. Substantially, concretely, something is present. Experience is present. It shows up in all the ways that it does, all of the flavors and textures and qualities of experience. We could look at anything just as we've been looking at the body, any flavor, any texture, any phenomena. And the investigation reveals just what we were just exploring, which is it can't be said, it can't be determined what anything is, which is absolutely an amazing thing, extraordinary thing. In a sense, you could say that nothing is there, but that doesn't quite capture it. I mean, nothing captures it in terms of words, of course, is what I'm saying. But in a way, nothing is inadequate because as an attempt to describe it, because it shows up, this inconceivable indeterminacy shows up as all of this flavor, all of this quality, all the qualities that we experience as humans. The happiness, the sadness, the pleasure, the pain, the heat, the cold, the roughness, the smoothness, the intensity, the gentleness. I mean, all of these, this full spectrum of human qualitative experience is just unthinkably full and rich and alive, and yet at the same time ungraspable, unfindable, unpin downable simultaneously, which doesn't make any logical sense. I mean, how could it be both those things? But it is. Our experience reveals that. And why is this liberating, as I said earlier? Well, even the very notion of bondage itself, which spiritual traditions the world over talk about, freeing yourself from bondage. Bondage is a description, isn't it, of something being bound in something else. So the entire framework of being bound and then needing to liberate oneself from that bondage is entirely based on descriptive frameworks, isn't it? But as I was just pointing out, you can't find, just as you can't pin down and determine what a body is made of, and in a sense, it's not thinkable, not conceivable, not findable as a thing, as a discretely definable, resolvable thing. This is true of what we might call bondage, or being stuck in something or caught in something. What is the thing that we're supposedly caught in? Is it an identity? Is it a belief system? Is it an experience, like an afflictive state of mind or emotion? Well, all of those things, when investigated, you come up with the same thing, which is indeterminacy. You come up with the same bottomless bottom line, which is you can't say what anything is. And so there isn't actually a thing there that's findable that one could be stuck in, nor a person who could be found to be stuck in something. So there's just wide open inconceivability, would be one way to put it. Absolute, wide open, open-ended indefinability. Nothing finite. Nothing finite in the sense of being bounded in some way and definable in some way. So it's completely unlimited, infinite. This moment, just as it is. The most ordinary of moments. Completely absolute pure mystery. Pure freedom. Freedom from all frameworks, from all ideas, from all apparent limitations. And I think it's fair to say that the only obstacle to recognizing that, if we want to say there's an obstacle, is the way in which consciousness continues to imagine its descriptions are actually capturing something findable. In other words, put it a little bit more colloquially, it's as if we keep telling ourselves, consciousness keeps telling itself that it's actually bound, that it's actually limited. That's a description. And that's really actually not the case. And that can be seen by, again, just feeling the presence of our experience and realizing there is no bondage, there is no obstacle, there is no one thing blocking something else. There's just pure openness in every instant. No matter how the description is showing up, the greatest heartbreak and sadness, pure inconceivable openness, infinity. The most blissful, ecstatic moment, exactly the same. At its basis, exactly the same. Well, that's probably a good jumping off point, especially since I know, as I said, we have less time than usual today. So I want to open up and see what I was just sharing, where is that landing in you? Like, what did it make sense to you in your own experience, what I was pointing to, what I am pointing to? What are you noticing about what's here?
Just some reactions.
Hey, Ed.
Hi. Um, to call it a mystery is saying too much also.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's only, a mystery to the conceptual way of looking at it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's not a mystery in the sense that it's obvious. I mean,
right,
it's right here. I mean, there's
right,
no mystery to it.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, words are so, and you and I have gone back and forth around this one, understandably, because I'm almost gonna make a mistake every time I say anything. Any attempt to characterize it, to characterize the uncharacterizable with any word, right? And so mystery, maybe we could say, is a poetic way to try to capture the unknowability of it. But you're right, it's the strange thing is that, as you say, it's very obvious. The presence of experience is very obviously here. It's like, it's shockingly like this moment is just here. It's explosively here. All the color, all the light, all the sound, the energies of that are the upwelling of energies. This all seems to be here, and in the sense of being experienced is here. It's real, and so it's not mysterious. I mean, we could say, like, the flavor of some food is the flavor of the food. It's exactly what it is. It's nothing mysterious about it. It's like I'm eating, uh, a grape, and it's nothing mysterious. It's a grape, and the flavor of it is very distinct. It's very specific, very specific. exactly what it is. It's nothing vague about it in a sense. But then what's so curious, which is what I was, pointing to, is that when you try to get to the heart of what the taste of grape is, that's so obvious and so here and so specifically what it's experienced as, you immediately hit this wall of unfindability. It's like very quickly you just get to like what I don't know what it is, and yet it's here. So the mysterious part is I don't know what it is. But the fact that it's here, nothing mysterious about that at all. Here it is, as you say. It's right here. So it's this very interesting, curious property of reality. It's I sometimes call the mirage-like nature of it. It's like the mirage is like, yeah, something's visibly present, right? Like the rainbow is definitely there. There's no denying it. It's very obvious. It's not a mystery. There it is. It's like, boom, beautiful rainbow. And then when you go to investigate what a rainbow is made of, what do you come up with? Empty. And yet there it is. So, and that's why, as I was saying, to call it nothingness or emptiness is a bit misleading, because the so-called nothingness or emptiness, the unfindable, shows up as all of this stuff, as all of this, the magic show of existence, including rainbows and thunderstorms and joys and sorrows and the whole thing, the whole inexplicable thing.
So the other thing that occurred to me when you were talking about the body,
Mm-hmm.
you were you were you had your eyes closed, so you were mostly feeling, the body.
Mm-hmm.
But if you open your eyes and identify the body visually,
Mm-hmm.
and you put aside your ideas and concepts
Mm-hmm.
of the body,
Mm-hmm.
you start noticing weird things like you have no head,
Mm-hmm.
and you have no back. There's missing. It doesn't line up with our idea
Mm-hmm.
of the body.
Right. Right. Yeah. Actually, yeah, absolutely. And visually, um, it becomes very interesting. Like I could look at what I call the body, but what am I actually seeing? I mean, I'm seeing patterns, I'm seeing light, I'm seeing reflection, I'm seeing, and again, I'm throwing words at things that I don't really have words for ultimately. But what's actually being encountered is not a body. I'm encountering experience. I'm encountering phenomena. And it's also dancing and jumping all over the place. Perception doesn't have the perception of anything, including the perception of the body, it's jumping around. It's not holding still. It's not, there's not a kind of a coherent, like it just settles down and it's like it sees. No, this is my experience at least, is it's this electric dancing, this shooting visual, this momentary um, rush of sensation. It's just this absolute cacophony slash symphony of um, I mean, it's very interesting because what's actually being encountered is much more like an abstract painting. It's not really cohering, but it shows up as a lot of structure and seeming structure and coherence. But the actual felt sense of this moment, it's just there's just countless stuff that's occurring that doesn't fit into any kind of like neat and tidy little simplistic narrative of the story of this moment, of this event. Far, far from it. It's just this absolute, um, and all those little details are actually what's being encountered. We're encountering the details, but Like I just noticed, you know, the peripheral, this little blowing blade of grass with the light flickering off of it. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? And what is that even? But that doesn't make its way into the simplified kind of explanation of what's going on. And you multiply that one little blade of grass flickering in the wind and the light glimmering off of it, and multiply that by, you know, infinity in terms of what's actually happening in every instant. It's just an absolute, I mean, you'd need 1,000,000,000 lifetimes to try to catalog, if you tried to catalog every single thing that's occurring right now in the field of experience that's actually being encountered. It's just endless, isn't it? It's just endless. It's amazing that consciousness can take it all and turn it into these seemingly coherent narratives. And certainly as perspectives, the narratives are fine, you know, within their own frames of reference, as I always say. Because yeah, from one perspective, I'm on a Zoom call talking to Ed, who I've talked with a number of times. So there's this sense of familiarity, but actually in the immediacy of this moment, there's really not a historical reference point. I mean, I can dredge one up, or consciousness can pull one seemingly from memory to create a reference point. But in the immediacy of this flash moment of experience is like, I was walking from getting a chai the other day and back to my place, and I looked up at what we call sky and clouds, and it suddenly occurred to me that I didn't know what that was. I mean, it's paradoxical because I knew it was sky and clouds, but I'm telling you about the sky and the clouds. But I saw in that moment very clearly that this particular version of sky and clouds, we could say, had never been encountered before. It was absolutely brand new, never before seen. And from that perspective, so that experiential perspective, how could I possibly know what that was? Where's my reference point to know what it is? I've never seen it before. I've never encountered it before. I've never seen that shape before, that color before. I'm just seeing, and we're just seeing what's here in this instant, always. That's what's here.
So it's like a freedom from a reference point.
Absolutely. It's absolutely, and it's freedom from, in that sense, freedom from the known, because all knowledge is based on reference points. I mean, if suddenly, um, oh, I don't know, you know, aliens from some other galaxy showed up and they emerged out of their spacecraft, and they happened to be some color that we've never encountered before, you know, the color of their skin, let's say. Well, we wouldn't know what that was because we have no reference point for it. We literally wouldn't know what it was. And owing to the dynamic, ever-changing nature of what's here, seems to be changing just like that each instant. You can feel the movement of this moment. It changes shape, doesn't it? The perception is not static, right? So here's this moment, this perception, and then the defining of the moment that goes on, of like characterizing, okay, well, what's here? Let me try to encapsulate what's here in some kind of descriptive framework. And then what's here is like, as the description, I mean, all this happens like in a flash, but as the characterization of the moment happens, oh, I'm experiencing X, Y, or Z, that entire perception is morphing into a different form. It's taking a different form. So the describing can never keep up with the way reality actually is, which is kind of funny. It's like we just can't keep up.
I read somewhere once that indigenous people on some South Sea island, the first time that a sailing ship from Europe appeared
Mm-hmm.
in the harbor, not only did they not know what it was,
Yeah.
it's expressed that they didn't even see it.
Yeah, I remember hearing that not long ago. The same thing, that because they didn't have a reference point, they didn't actually see anything.
They didn't see anything. They didn't see the white sails.
It's. I know, it's amazing, right? It's very
So,
interesting.
so I was, when you were asking us to explore our bodies,
Yeah.
so I was exploring my body, and I came down to my body is made of subatomic particles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are they made of? Right? That's the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now
is there a smallest? Is there a smallest one?
right. Well, here's what's interesting, Bill, is that unless you're different than I am, of course you are, um, but the set, I don't have a sense of the body being made of subatomic particles. I have an idea of that I've learned, and fair enough, I've learned from my studies in physics and whatever and microbiology that the world of matter is made of these constituent parts, which are made of other constituent parts. And as far as we know, when you go down, 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 and you end up with whatever the Higgs boson or the quantum whatever probability field, and as far as I know, where the physicists are at is basically you end up with math. They haven't actually seen the fundamental what makes up matter. They're left with an equation at this point. But putting that aside, the inquiry that I was inviting is more experiential, right? In the sense of like what is, in the same way, if you wanted to know what the sensation of touch was, you could analyze it like, oh well, it's neurons firing to the brain, sending signals back to, but the other way to know what touch is made of is to feel something with feel the sensation of touch. Put your hand on something, feel that sensation, and then ask yourself, what is that feeling made of? And that becomes very interesting. I think you end up similar to the physicist, not being able to get to the bottom of what the felt sense is made of, what the experience is made of. But I don't think we're experiencing. I'm not experiencing subatomic particles. I'm experiencing experience, whatever that is, and I don't know what that is, which is interesting. Even though I seem to have a lot of names to try to capture elements of experience, but it's so subtle. That's my sense. Is this investigation reveals the subtle nature of everything. There's not really a gross and a subtle realm. In a sense, there's just complete subtlety everywhere you look, even the so-called grossest of gross phenomena. The actual feeling of it, just take a moment and you'll quickly discover how subtle it actually is, how difficult to grasp hold of it is, well, impossible ultimately. So again, like in my conversation with Ed, it's like, well, the body is the body. It's obvious. It's not a mystery. Here is the body. And yet, whether I'm looking at it visually or feeling it with eyes closed, or someone's touching my body, all of the different ways I might encounter the body sensorially or proprioceptively, any way that I might encounter it, I arrive at the same conclusion that um, I don't know, it's like entering into this. I mean, one way I would describe it is like you're like tunneling into the phenomena in a sense, experientially, and there's no end to the tunneling. You know, you don't finally get to the bottom of the well, and now you're sitting there going, ah, I found the body. This is it. It's not like that. It's not that you can't determine it. And apparently in physics, again, there's a parallel. I don't know physics very well, but they talk about the indeterminacy. And experientially, I would suggest that it's indeterminate, can't be determined. And again, that's liberating, right? Because all the apparent problems that we experience as humans are based on our descriptions. What else are they based on? And the descriptions suggest to us that this can be determined, hence described, right? That's the fantasy that we pulled it off. You know, I know what this is. I have a word for it. I have a label for it. I have a definition for it. And really, what I'm inviting us to look at is, see, is that actually true? Can I actually know what this is in any kind of definitive way? And I am unable to. I don't know about anyone else, but I can only speak from here. I can't determine what this is, and that the felt sense of that, the implication of that, is one of great freedom. There's not a person stuck in something else, because neither of those things can be determined. So there's just a flow of reality, a flow of life, a flow of perspectives, a flow of energies, a flow of consciousness. I mean, I'm throwing words again at something that has no words, but it has the sense of movement, of vitality, of constant unfolding, opening into the next, into the next, into the next, never really fully landing anywhere as a form, owing to its constantly shape-shifting nature, and hence not describable because of its slipperiness, its evanescence.
Now, I don't remember whether you did this in your writing or not, but you could take a sentence
Mm-hmm.
and look at each word and say, well, I don't know what this is.
Yes.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is.
Absolutely. The whole sentence.
You're left with
yeah, like if I say, you know, I am on a Zoom call, each one of those words can be explored. Okay, what's the I that's apparently on a Zoom call? Well, let's start there. I don't have no idea. I mean, what am I referring to? Well, I can't locate a center. I can't locate a person at the center of what's here, not that has any clear boundaries to it or definitions. So I can't find the I, and then am, the sense of I am, again, it's very palpable. There's a sense of being, there's a sense of existing, which is undeniable, and yet I can't pin that down either. What is life exactly as an experience? It's just like the body. It feels actually, I think this is what is meant by the idea of the one taste of everything. It's like it all starts to feel quite similar in its unfindability. It's like this presence that I can't quite pin down, no matter what it is. And so, yeah, and what's a Zoom call? Well, again, I'm describing something, an event that's occurring here that's like an infinity of phenomena, and there's just too much there to ever encapsulate. And each part of that is like its own vortex of infinite information that I can't pin down. And I mean, it's so amazing to me to, language just kind of is so facile that it gives us a sense of kind of having a grasp of reality. But this kind of inquiry, this investigation that I'm inviting people into, turns that upside down in its head, and it's like it's just not graspable, which is so delightful, actually. It's so lovely to feel the open-ended nature of it. The fact that it's not fixed in any particular way, that it's free to become, in a sense, whatever it seems to become.
Like Ed was saying, when you break down a sentence into words,
Mm-hmm.
you can look at each word and you can throw up your hands and say, I don't know what that word means.
Exactly.
And yet, for example, reading one of your books, John, I can come to a sentence and it can be very meaningful.
Uh-huh.
It can have a lot of meaning.
Yeah.
Actually, I prepared a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read it. Get it right here.
I just wanted to say one thing about that,
Yeah.
the meaningfulness and is like is very curious, but I would say, I will sometimes try poetically to use words to capture the unfindable essential nature of things. And one that I would use that sometimes arises in my own experience is a sense of meaningfulness, is that if this moment feels pregnant with a kind of value and a meaningfulness, but it's not, for me, it's not a conceptual one. Like I couldn't tell you in words, oh, it means X, Y, or Z. But meaningfulness or value or significance are words I could use to try to convey something of the flavor of it. But again, it's like, it's not like, oh, the meaning of this is X, Y, and Z, like you would write it out in a treatise or something. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you could say that I'm going to say something about this indescribable meaning that I'm feeling right now, and
Mhm.
it's going to fall short
Right,
because it's necessarily going to fall short.
right,
But here it is anyway. And
yeah,
if you make that disclaimer before you say it,
right.
it's fine, right?
Sure, I put that disclaimer at the end of my last book. Maybe I should have put it at the beginning, but I had an afterword that said, by the way, everything I've said here is untrue. Because in the sense of you just can't say what this is, and yet words are pregnant with the power of reality because everything is pregnant with infused with the very power of this unfathomable whatever this is. And so words seem to at times have their own capacity to evoke something of the wordless, something of the unfathomable, because they're made of that, just like everything is. Yeah.
Okay, so this was my question.
Yeah.
Do you see synchronicities as meaningful doorways into the magic of experience, or as idle mental gymnastics which veil the miracle of this extraordinary moment, or something in between?
Can you say it again?
Do you see synchronicities as meaningful doorways into the magic of experience, or as idle mental gymnastics which veil the miracle of this extraordinary moment, or something in between?
I think my first response, Bill, would be that like almost anything, including reading a text or something, that how we engage with it is probably more important than whatever the thing is itself. I mean, I don't know what a synchronicity is exactly. I mean, it's a word that we use to describe something, but I had one of the most profound synchronicities that I ever had a couple of years ago, where I ran into like my closest soul brother friend at a remote gas station at midnight. We were both hundreds of miles from one another's homes. It was a very significant moment in my life. And his showing up in that moment was it was absolutely mind-blowing, like as mind-blowing as any sort of synchronistic event I'd ever encountered. And I just enjoyed the beauty of that moment, the seeming impossibility of it. And then what I saw in that moment, what it woke up in me was a kind of recognition, or one way that I would think about synchronicities is that, what do we say? Two inexplicable moments or events seemingly coming together simultaneously, right? And, sort of how could it have happened that I run into my friend, in that way? It was like impossible. All of the things that had to conspire, you could say, to let that happen, right? One little turn that I take, one little extra car that gets in front of me and I miss him. Same with him, right? That's all it would have taken. And it was this giant gas station, and he just happened to turn his head this way, and there I was. He could have missed me, but he didn't. So here's a cool way to think about synchronicities. This moment is exactly the same. Everything in the universe, we could say, has conspired in a perfect, inexplicable way to enable this moment to be here, for us to be in this moment together in the way that we are. It's impossible. I mean, we could have taken 1,000 different other turns and this moment may not have come together in this way, but it did come together in this way. So we could say, in a sense, that all there is this synchronistic coming together of seeming pieces and parts of the whole to encounter whatever it is that the pieces and parts seem to encounter. So in a sense, it's one giant synchronicity that's absolutely inexplicable. That would be one way I would describe that, which is probably not adequate, but
But I think that
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
the key thing is the meaningfulness of it. And
Sure.
so if you could see the meaningfulness in this moment,
Yes.
you could describe it that way.
Right.
But these synchronicities are
Right.
things that pop out
Right.
the bigger meaning, I think.
Right. And that's beautiful. And I think I'm going to have to sign off in a second here, but just to end on this, that, it's a little bit like seeing a fantastically beautiful, like, moment. You hear a beautiful piece of music, or you see a beautiful sunrise or something, and it really, like, wakes you up to the incredible beauty that's present in the universe, right? But in a sense, it's just highlighting something that's actually always the case. And it's a matter of how we're orienting to the experience. And so it's same with meaningfulness. Like, this moment is so profoundly drenched with the most unspeakable beauty and meaningfulness, actually, this moment, as much as any moment we've ever experienced, because this is it. This is the absolute reality, just as every other moment is. Is it sometimes more apparent that that's the case under certain circumstances? It can seem that way, but it's powerful to appreciate that the meaningfulness, the beauty, the transcendental, indescribable nature of this, the completeness of it, the wholeness of it, does not depend upon how it's looking, actually. It is its very nature. And so that's the movement from the emphasis of description back to what's actually here. Because what's actually here is that unfathomable, intrinsically transcendental beauty. That is the case, regardless of how it might be being described. Because the descriptions make it seem like there's this and there's that, and this is better than that, and this is more positive or more enlightened than that, and on and on and on and on and on. And then you're in the world of pieces and hierarchy of phenomena. But from the perspective of the basic state of everything, which is, unknowable, we could say, and unfindable, but still here, the presence of everything, there's no hierarchy. Everything is drenched with this illumination. Everything is drenched with this aliveness, with this radiance shining forth as all things. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm sorry I'd have to sign off early, but I will look forward to being with all of you again soon, hopefully, and wish you a beautiful rest of your days. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joe.
John.